Hello, everyone. Amia here from Resonance Astrology, and welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, hi, and welcome to this channel. On this channel, we talk about astrology transits, we do weekly overviews, and we also do horoscopes. And this time around, we're going to focus on Mars in Scorpio. Now, Mars just recently ingressed into the sign of Scorpio, and so what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to pull up a presentation. We're going to go through what Mars is as an archetype in the sign of Scorpio. We're going to look at the transit timeline with the most important transits so you get an overview. And then we're going to go sign by sign through each horoscopes. But these are going to be in-depth horoscopes, okay? Because we're not just going to go through what Mars in Scorpio is in the specific house. We're also going to talk about what it all means. Mars going through these transits, okay? So these are going to be in-depth horoscopes for this Mars transit. So if you're liking what you're hearing, this is what we kind of do on this channel. So make sure to already subscribe. And the timestamps are going to be down in the description below and in the pinned comment. You can go towards your sign. And if you want to listen to the transit timeline and what Mars and Scorpio means, these are also going to be down below. I'm going to see you guys soon. So hi everyone, we are here now with the presentation, and it's been a hot while since Mars was in a sign where it's in domicile in. Mars is a domicile or the home sign of Scorpio and of Aries. And the last time that Mars was in a strong position, aka in Aries, was around 17 months ago. This was back around end of April of 2024. And just to give you a sort of time frame for how long ago that was, back then Jupiter was still in the sign of Taurus. So Mars going back to domicile, we had a whole Jupiter transit before Mars is now in its domicile again. And why was this period so long? Well, because Mars had its retrograde period in the sign of Cancer, where Mars is also in a fallen position. So Mars hasn't been really doing well when it was in its retrograde motion. And Mars retrograde happened around end of 2024 and beginning of 2025. So it's been a while, and now Mars is back in its strong position. So it is an intense inner drive that we are all currently feeling, an inner conviction. It's almost like a rebirthing moment. And we're going to talk more about this in the next slide we're going to go to now, which is really focused on Mars and Scorpio, a bit on an archetypal level. Now, Scorpio as a sign is yin, is feminine energy. That means it's more internal. We get a Mars that doesn't have this outward focus like Mars does when it's in its other domicile, the sign of Aries. It's a more internal drive, and it expresses itself more on the inside. Mars actually has a lot to do with our desires, because what are our desires? They are our driving forces. Scorpio gets energy and regeneration through desires, because whatever we are convinced we really want to get, this is where Mars and Scorpio excels. So, and this is also where this transformative moment happens, because when we talk about things like manifesting, we need to look at it from an energetic level on a physical, internal sense. Because whatever we want out there, if it doesn't match the vibration we are sending out, what we are feeling inside, there's no way we're actually going to get it. And so Mars in Scorpio excels at putting itself in this position of feeling the uncomfortable feelings that are in the way of achieving what we want to go get, what we desire, and actually transforming that junk and gung, doing the necessary cut-offs, okay, Mars has to do with severing, with cutting. So this is what Mars in Scorpio does well, to cut us off and sever ties around people, around relationships, around jobs, just anything that doesn't serve us anymore. Of course, as always, this can go into the extreme. And what Mars and Scorpio in general kind of struggle with is sometimes conflating building walls around them with boundaries. Now, this is not where we want to go, right? We don't want to burn bridges prematurely that we don't need to burn. We don't want to cut people off immediately when we sense, ooh, something is triggering. No, sometimes there are lessons that need to be learned. People come into our lives for a reason, and we don't need to prematurely cut and sever ties. But again, this will be very individual. I always like to look at things from multiple perspectives because I think that is important. And I never really want to go into either one extreme or the other. And everything will be applicable to you in whatever way it is applicable to you. Maybe you really struggle with cutting people off, and Mars in Scorpio brings in that energy and that vigor that you actually can do it. On the other hand, maybe you're somebody that cuts off people prematurely, and then your lesson is to actually sit in the discomfort and maybe engage in the conflict that you are avoiding. So everything will really depend on you as a person and where you stand in life, but only you will know what exactly is the lesson here right now for you. It will be different for everyone. And once we get into horoscopes, it will be more feasible what exactly it is for you that you are learning. Okay. And so there is, again, there is also psychological and intuitive depth when it comes to Scorpio, especially Mars in Scorpio. It's very, Scorpio likes to observe. Okay. It observes, it's very strategic. That's what I also put down here, right? Scorpio is very strategic in how it shares its energy, where it puts its emotional, well, just in general, where it puts its emotion towards and its energy focus towards, because it knows that whatever it puts its energy towards has the potential to be deeply transformative. That's why Scorpio tends to have this energy of all or nothing. Because Scorpio wants all or nothing. Scorpio wants either death and transformation or a life and transformation. That's why Scorpio sometimes also, sometimes, in its own account, um, subconsciously or consciously puts itself into crises moments because that's where Scorpio gets its power from. It's in the crises moment. It's when Scorpio gets put in the edge and where it's like, I will either die or transform. That's where it gains its power. When it has to fully surrender and there is no other option. This is where Scorpio excels. And this is every year when Scorpio season rolls around, this is the invitation. And this is why a lot of people don't like Scorpio energy because it's not the easiest energy to deal with. This is also why Scorpios are so misunderstood, why Scorpio is so misunderstood as a sign. Because it goes to the places a lot of people don't dare to go. It wants to sit in the discomfort. It wants to go through the crises moment because it sees crises as an opportunity, as a point of transformation. It knows that death is not literal, it's metaphorical. And who knows, we are all going through transformational metaphorical deaths when Mars is in Scorpio and when Scorpio season rolls around. Sometimes, on the other hand, this can get into an obsessive matter. And this is where we need to be careful because healthy obsessions are great. Actually, Mars in Scorpio invites us to live out our healthy obsessions. If there is something we desire, if there is a job we desire, if there is a relationship we desire, although again, we gotta be a bit careful in this realms, okay? We don't want to force things. We don't want to make other people obsessed with us and do energetic tricks or whatever. But a healthy dose of obsession and really like focusing your energy on wanting to get what you want to get is going to get you so much further. That's why Scorpios are pretty much masters at manifestation. But they have to reach this moment. They have to reach this moment internally where every single cell in the body is so convinced that there is no other option That's powerful. That's that internal drive of Mars and Scorpio, the feminine yin aspect of Mars. Not the yang Mars and Aries, the yin Mars and Scorpio, okay? Of course, obsessions can sometimes go too far and they can eat Scorpios alive. And here again, it's, I cannot tell you when this moment comes in your life, but sometimes we simply do not need to let go and see that the universe is trying to reroute us. And this is clearly not what we should put our energy into. But that is not something that I can tell you, at least not here in this reading where I'm not even talking to you. You're gonna have to see that for yourself. But obsessions can be healthy and can help us to get what we want and what we need. As I already mentioned, Scorpio is very strategic, but there is a quality, eye for an eye kind of quality, which is why Scorpio also tends to be, or can tend to be vengeful, because it feels like what you have done to me, I will do to you. And I need to see that exactly. Although I will argue, and I don't really like saying it this way, but I don't really have a better way of saying it. This is more of an unevolved Scorpio energy. An evolved Scorpio energy trusts that karma will serve its way. And if you're lucky enough, God will let you watch. But that doesn't always happen. But there is a cosmic intelligence in a lot of things. And we just need to trust that revenge is not the best medicine. Oftentimes it's not. It just ties us more to the other person, especially if it's something that involves a lot of grief and pain and rage. If we're trying to curse someone or let go, it can tangle us even more to the person. And that's not where we want to go. Okay, we want to do our parts. We want to do the energetic clearances wherever we can do them, and then let the rest be taken care of. Okay, that's how you take back your power. That's taking back power. Okay, Mars is a lot about taking back your power, and this is how you take back your power, is realizing what you can do in this situation. Otherwise, we go around feeling powerless because we feel like, oh, I can only let this go once the apology comes in. I can only let this go once I see them suffer as they have made suffer me. That's not where we want to go. That just ties us to the other people much more. So, this is kind of the archetype of Mars in Scorpio. I will say, for me, the mantra this Mars and Scorpio season is really to see my desires as a compass and use a healthy dose of obsession to go after them and dare to go after them. So, we will now go to the transit timeline to look at what are the important transits for this specific cycle. Mars moved into Scorpio yesterday on September 24th and will stay there until November 4th. Then it will move into the sign of Sagittarius. And after that, actually, when this will be around December, when Mars moves into the sign of Capricorn, this will also be pretty sexy because Mars is exalted into the sign of Capricorn. But that's for another time. But there is a lot of juiciness to look forward to. But the first transit that we are getting is Mars squaring Pluto in Aquarius. This is happening very soon. This is happening tomorrow. And I actually just realized that I wrote the initial date not correctly because Mars moved into Scorpio yesterday. It's not 21st September yesterday. Yesterday was, in fact, the 22nd of September. So apologies for that. Tomorrow is September 24th, and this is when Mars square Pluto in Aquarius happens. A rather intense aspect, especially since this is really the first aspect that we are getting immediately when the ingress happens. Every time Mars and Pluto come together, it can get violent and it can get volatile. So there is definitely some cautionary advice that I have to give you here. Be aware of But if you're working with sharp objects, machinery, take extra precaution. Even if you're just in the kitchen and you are cutting your vegetables and you intuitively feel, right? Let's not forget Mars and Scorpio is all about intuition. If you just feel, maybe I should put on these gloves, do that. Take the necessary precautions. I think it's okay to be a bit, if you're paranoid around this day, it's okay. And, better safe than sorry. I'm a big proponent of this. Better safe than sorry, especially on the day. If you're feeling something is off, maybe you want to go and meet someone, you feel something is off, listen to that gut feeling and don't do it on that day because things could get violent very easily. It might also, Mars and Pluto are great together for inner transformation. But again, we're going to talk more about this, what it means for each sign when we go through the horoscopes. We have a full moon in the sign of Aries on October 7th, and this one is important because Aries is ruled by Mars. So this full moon is going to be ruled by a Mars that is in Scorpio, and it's going to bring themes around the Aryan parts of our chart that have been heavily influenced this year by Neptune and by Saturn moving into the sign of Aries. So this is going to be a full moon to look out for. Then we have some positive transits or more pleasant transits also happening a bit later on in this whole cycle of Mars and Scorpio. Mars is going to trine Jupiter in Cancer. This is beneficial. Trines are usually pleasant. And when Mars in its home sign is trining Jupiter in Cancer in its exaltation, that is when we get really far with our beliefs and our convictions. This is a great time to birth something and take action. When I say birth something, I mean that in a metaphorical level, that it is great to birth an idea out into the world. Then we also have Mars trining Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Pisces. Yes, Neptune will have moved back into the sign of Pisces by then. This is happening at very late degrees, okay? Mars literally trines Neptune and Pisces at 29 degrees on the same day that it moves into Sagittarius. So there's a lot happening at that final moment and pre-ingress. And the trines to Saturn and Neptune definitely also super beneficial to make long-lasting changes. I mean, this is happening one day after, right? Mars trines Jupiter in Cancer, one day after Mars trines Saturn. So this is about birthing something into creation, transforming your inner emotional world, something long-lasting. Okay, Saturn is about things that stand the test of time. So these are the transits that are most important and that we are also going to look at when we go horoscopes one by one, which is where we're going to go to now. So Aries suns and Aries risings. This Mars in Scorpio transit is happening in your eighth house, the house of shared resources, of other people's resources, of intimacy, and definitely a lot of depth. So, this Mars transit in general in your eighth house is gonna evoke that maybe some fears for sure. There could be some paranoia and some anxieties that rise up that are waiting for you to actually transform them. You're in Aries rising. That means you are ruled by Mars. That means whatever Mars is doing is important. And Mars going through your eighth house, I know that you Aries are definitely a good candidate for actually facing the uncomfortable things that are thrown at you. Sometimes you can be prone to climb mountains unnecessarily, but I feel like with Mars and Scorpio, if you direct your energy in a very more cautious way, sometimes you tend to be a bit all over the place. But if you direct that energy in a more concise way and really focus on what do I want to get, which desires I want to focus on, it could get you really far. Then on September 24th, This is happening very soon. Mars is squaring Pluto in your 11th house. This is going to put to test some power dynamics with your friend groups, also your dreams and where you want to head. There might be some conflict with the resources that both of you want to invest. Maybe you feel like you've been treated unfairly, or you have been overgiving, or there's just like an imbalance or something is going on. Things could get head to head during September 24th. I do just want to say precautiously, don't immediately cut ties, okay? There are other days where this might be more beneficial. If anything, I think this day might just make you very painfully aware if there have been any imbalances, but don't handle prematurely. Then on October 7th, we have an Aries full moon, which is happening in your first house. So this will put a spotlight on your identity. I mean, it's going to put a spotlight on you and really just who you are as a person versus, again, Mars in the eighth, your entanglements with others. Mars in the eighth is really asking you, is the resources that I'm giving or receiving fair? And it might really also illuminate and make you aware of all the work that you have been putting in ever since Saturn and Neptune have briefly moved into your first house this year. Then on October 28th, we have a Mars trine Jupiter. This is happening in your fourth house. This is where we can see some growth in family at home and where you are living. This might be a good time to, if there have been any misconceptions or just fights around family and maybe inheritance and things like that, who is, because the eighth house is just so much about resources and contracts and all of that. It is a good day to salvage that and solve if there have been any mishaps surrounding that, especially when it comes to property and, yeah, living situation mostly, but just something that involves your family and maybe contracts that you have with them. Then on October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn, and on November 3rd, we have Mars trining Neptune in your 12th house. This will probably form discipline and intuition from solitude and your inner life, and you'll realize what truly supports you and who truly supports you. And it will be an amazing day to transform that, to transform things that were your blind spots that have been holding you away. Definitely, if there have been any power struggles or trauma that is involved, this is a good day to long term transform something on your emotional and energetic body to finally set you free. So, this is what I have for you, dear Aries. Let me know down in the comments how you have been feeling. And I'm sending you so much love for these Mars in Scorpio transit. Okay, dear Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Now, Mars in Scorpio will be traveling through your seventh house, which is the house of partnerships, one-to-one relationships, everyone that is kind of close to you on a more intimate level. Could also be your therapists, everybody that just knows you more than the average person. So Mars going through your seventh house is gonna make you reevaluate where you want to put your energy towards, which relationships are actually nourishing for you. Sometimes in the seventh house, especially if it's near the descendant degree, it can also show us the people that come into our life and they embody that energy. So maybe it's not something that you necessarily embody, but somebody in your life that is close to you that could experience or embody the traits of this Mars and Scorpio transit. So maybe somebody comes into your life and initiates a deep transformation and makes you aware of your intuition, or they are just highly intuitive and they make you aware of certain things in your life that you haven't realized before. So, this is kind of what you're going to be dealing with. Then on September 24th, Mars is going to square Pluto in your 10th house. This is basically, career and public life versus personal balance. There could be tension between investing time in your career versus investing time in a partnership. Maybe you're also put on an ultimatum where you're like, should I put my energy towards that or towards a person? So be a bit cautious around there, and also don't cut ties prematurely. You don't need to make an immediate decision. Sometimes when Mars and Pluto come together, it feels very primal and you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do this right now. You don't. You can let it sit for a few days before you make that final decision. But sometimes Mars and Pluto just come around and they make us aware what the tension is. And then afterwards, we can decide. Squares are of the nature of Mars, so there is a Martian energy in general to them. So just be aware and don't act prematurely. But if you do generally feel like I need to cut ties with somebody, do it. Then on October 7th, we have the Aries full moon, which is happening in your 12th house. So there are probably private truths that are shifting your relationships. This might be a time where something gets revealed to you that you have not yet known before. This is also all the work that you have been putting in your 12th house ever since Saturn and Neptune moved into the 12th house in Aries this year, kind of come to it's like a spotlight moment when the full moon comes and they illuminate that hidden 12th house. So it might also just be a personal aha moment of, oh, these are my subconscious patterns that are holding me back. Oh, these are my self-sabotaging patterns that are holding me back in my life, in my relationship, especially, right? Because this full moon is ruled by Mars. That's why I'm highlighting this. So this is what probably awaits you on October 7th. Then on October 28th, we have Mars trine Jupiter in your third house. Now, this is going to expand your communication or how you are learning, how you are communicating, which is probably good after that full moon in your 12th house. Maybe you realize, oh, these are my self-sabotaging behaviors. How can I now communicate that better to other people? It might also really be supportive when it comes to your nearby community and really feeling safe and good in your kind of local environment. Then on October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn, and on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in your 11th house of friendships and networks and all of your dreams and visions. So this will be a good and nurturing time exactly in these topics. And it might really provide both structure and vision and basically kind of force you to reevaluate, is this really the people that I want to have around in my life? I mean, let's not forget that Saturn and Neptune moving back into the sign of Pisces, this is just one last final time. So it's really, what long-term impact do we want to last on this house where Saturn and Neptune are traversing in Pisces for one last final time? So which friendships and groups do you want to have by your side when you're making those big strides towards your future? So this is what I have for you, dear Tauruses. Let me know how you're doing. And I'm sending you much love for this Scorpio transit, Mars and Scorpio transit. Okay, Gemini suns and Gemini risings, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Mars in Scorpio is going to be traveling through your sixth house. That has a lot to do with your health. On the flip side, also with diseases and things like that. But good news, Mars is actually in its joy in the sixth house. So Mars does rather well in the sixth house. It also has to do with work, basically the job we're kind of having, the daily routines and the daily necessary things we just kind of have to do, our obligations and all of that. So Mars will really focus its energy towards you kind of figuring how to balance. I mean, maybe balance is not the right word for when we talk about Mars, but it can definitely tune you in and make you more sensitive to what your daily routines are actually doing to your energetic body. And are they conducive to your health? Or is the way that you are planning and living out your day-to-day life actually kind of making you more sick? And let's not forget, our nervous systems are very loud. Our bodies keep the score, as we know. So this might make you very aware of where exactly your body is keeping the score. On September 24th, we have Mars squaring Pluto in your ninth house. So there is tension and a clash when it comes to your beliefs and probably maybe some overwhelming feelings. If you are currently studying in education in some sorts or traveling, this might bring a clash. And well, I'm just thinking, this is actually my cautionary tale of basically saying maybe don't travel that day. But since these horoscopes are going up one day before this happens, I am hoping that everything went well and hoping that you are seeing this now before shit goes down, as they say. But maybe you're not traveling and then this is not for you. This is just for all the Geminis that are traveling or are on the road. Do be careful around that day because things can get volatile and violent. Maybe you are also studying, and this could bring you a clash in, is this really where I want to invest my time and energy in? And your beliefs, the way that you believe in the world and your systems. I mean, our beliefs shape the way we show up every day. And this might really give you into a clash. It might be a bit of existentialism, I'm not gonna lie, but things get better afterwards, okay? On October 7th, we have an Aries full moon happening in your 11th house, which is the house of community, friendships, and your dreams and visions. So there is a balancing act that is kind of going on in your social demands with daily life. And is this in cooperation with each other? You're a busy bee, Geminis, okay? I know that you're very social creatures by nature. So sometimes to your own default, you then start to neglect your health because you maybe have the fear of missing out or something like that. You just want to go to all events. Well, this might be a peak moment where you really have to be very decisive in where you're putting your energy in. And maybe skip that social gathering and focus on your health if it demands so. Ever since, Saturn and Neptune moved into your 11th house this year briefly in Aries, you have been really reevaluating which friend groups you want to have around. So this full moon is kind of just bringing that into peak. Then on October 28th, we have a lovely Mars trine Jupiter in your second house that has to do with financial stability. And does that support your daily routines? Is the way that you are generating wealth? And it does not just have to be money, it can just be your own resources in whatever way that is. Is that supporting your day-to-day life and is that supporting your day-to-day health? It's a good day to actually get into this generating birthing mode. These are water signs. There is often a lot of emotional attachments and wounds that we have around things like that, around money. It's a big topic. Could do a whole separate video about it. But you know your money wounds if you have them and how capable you are of generating wealth or not. This might be a good day for some emotional clearing for that actually benefits you later on. Then on October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn. And on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in your 10th. By that time, both Saturn and Neptune are back into Pisces. And this is a trine to your 10th house. So their focus is on career gains and your structure and the direction that you really want to head in life, kind of the legacy that you want to leave behind, and really focusing on that. This is kind of a final stress test that we are getting with Neptune and Saturn back in the sign of Pisces, because once they leave Pisces for good next year, we're not going to have this for a long, long, long time. So this is kind of really the last, how should I say this, stretch of being really decisive of what long-term thing we want to plan there. Okay, Saturn is about the long vision and the long-term thing. So where do you want your life to head? What do you really want to leave behind in this world? And it might spark your imagination on that day. Okay, we have a lovely trine in general from your 10th, second, and sixth house, which is really beneficial to the work that you want to give to the world and how it can successfully also benefit you financially or with any other resources. So, this is what I have for you, dear Geminis, and let me know how you're feeling, how you're doing. And I'm sending you so much love for these Mars in Scorpio transit. Dear Cancer suns and Cancer risings, welcome to your Mars and Scorpio horoscopes. Now, Mars and Scorpio will travel through your fifth house, which is great because this is in a trining position to your ascendant. So it means it's more pleasant for you to go through. And this will get you into focus on creativity, on romance, in children, if you have any. If you don't have any, it could also just be a focus on your inner child and the things that it likes to do. It's like a very healing the inner child type of transit. And with Mars and Scorpio, things can go very in depth with all of this, because you could really kind of go into the abyss of maybe some unpleasant things that happen in your childhood and alchemize that. Wherever you have pain, bringing that power back to you and turning it into joy. Because that's the biggest middle finger you can give to any sort of trauma you endured into childhood. That's how you take back your power, by bringing in joy into your life now. Anyhow, sorry. I'm just like, this is gonna turn into an empowering talk if I keep saying saying these things, but maybe you needed to hear it, dear Cancers. On September 24th, we have Mars squaring Pluto in your eighth. This definitely brings in an intense wave of, well, actually, probably maybe facing exactly what I was talking about before. Anything that has to do with crisis moments, anything that has to do with past traumas, anything that has to do where you felt powerless, especially when it comes to intimacy, romantic relationships where you have felt like your power stripped away from you and you have no choice. Shared finances, if there was any difficulties or injustices done in shared finances and you were left at the losing end, this brings things to a boil. Just as a cautionary tale, don't cut off things or people prematurely. There is still more things that need to be revealed, but it might be that day where you find out, maybe perhaps even some hidden information. Okay, the eighth house is a bit of a tricky house sometimes, and it reveals things we are not ready to hear. So it might be a time that, somebody maybe says something to you and it reveals information, especially when it comes to like contracts and all of that, that you did not know yet before. So it might bring things to a bit of a heating point right at the beginning. And then October 7th, we have that Aries full moon in your 10th that is ruled by that Mars in the 5th. So there is a spotlight on your career, on your public role, and what you kind of really want to do for work, the legacy that you want to leave behind, and how do you want people to see you, essentially. So there's like this creative drive in the fifth, Mars in the fifth, that wants and has the urge to go public. It might be a real good time to actually step out of your comfort zone, which I know you cancers can sometimes get into, retrieving into your shell, put you out of your comfort zone and actually share your beautiful talents. Because what are we gonna do if you are keeping quiet and not sharing your talents, okay? We need your voice, we need your gifts, we need your beautiful intuition. So it's a good day to actually step into that spotlight because I'm telling you, if you're not doing, someone else is gonna do it. And I want you to do it. On October 28th, we have a beautiful trine between Mars and Jupiter in your first house. And this is going to be so good for your personal growth, especially when it comes to your creativity and your endeavors, and probably a lot of that inner child healing. I think a lot of inner child healing has to do with taking back our power when it comes to creativity. Because so often, what happens when we turn adults is we forget the little things that brought so much joy into our life. And so many of the things are actually so obvious. Like the talents that we keep running and hiding away from, so obvious when we were kids. And so this is the perfect day to once and for all kind of get over that and actually start doing it and accept that you're in a phase right now, especially with Jupiter going through your first house, where it's okay to receive, where it's okay to be big, where it's okay to be grand. On October 29th, one day later, we also have a Mars trining Saturn in Pisces. And on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune, because Neptune by then will already have moved back in the design of Pisces one last final time. And this fuels your urge to learn, to travel, to educate yourself. Maybe there are some spiritual frameworks that bring both discipline and inspiration that are very important for you to develop during this time. It's really all of that. You know, the fifth and the ninth house plays so well into that first house because both of them constitute of your beliefs, which shape the way that you wake up and go on about your day-to-day life. And the fifth house, your daily joys. And so this trine, this first, ninth, and fifth house trine is really what makes life worth living. And you're having a really good transit this month with Mars and Scorpio to make you very concise, to follow your desires, okay? And to not shy away from that. So, dear Cancers, this is what I have for you. Let me know how you're feeling, and I'm sending you so much love. Bye bye. Leo suns and Leo risings, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Now, Mars in Scorpio is going to be traversing and traveling through your fourth house. This house has a lot to do with home, with family, with our foundations. Let's not forget that this is the darkest part, the most invisible, private part of our charts. So it has everything to do with like intimate affairs as well. Not like in the eighth house, but more in just like a matter of I want to keep this private. I want to keep this in the intimate family space of my own home. So this is what Mars in Scorpio is kind of going to highlight for you. On September 24th, Mars is squaring Pluto in your seventh house of partnership and close one-on-one relationships. So there is sort of like a pressure test that you are getting when it comes to your home life and your partners. If you are in a partnership right now, maybe you're thinking of moving in together, or there's something with the living situation. Maybe there is even something that is up with the family, like disagreements. This might bring things to kind of a boiling point on like disagreements and all of that. At the same time, offers a real opportunity to settle things once and for all and transform them into something that suits everyone much better. Sometimes we need to put things out in the open, especially if there has been like some resentment and things that haven't been really fully cleared that have need to be brought to the table. And this is kind of a day where I see this happening for you, Leos. Then on October 7th, we have an Aries full moon that is ruled by Mars and Scorpio happening in your ninth house. The ninth house has to do with studying, with self knowledge, like exploring oneself, exploring your beliefs, with travel, with worldview, and kind of like it is piquing your expansion of what is possible. And that is influencing your home decisions. So, whatever your beliefs are and what is being put up in the forefront, and ever since, Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries in your ninth house this year, all of this has been kind of put under test. And you might have really been rethinking, is what I'm believing the way that I want to see and be in the world? And this full moon is kind of just lighting this up. Maybe there have been some disagreements, with your family, with your ancestry, where you want to head, how you want to be in the world, not really aligning with your beliefs or the beliefs that you want to go towards now. Maybe you have changed your, like, maybe you grew up in a certain religion or spirituality and that changed now, and this has brought up some conflicts around your family or your home life. So this is kind of what is really being blown up and put on the spotlight on this Aries full moon in your ninth house. Then on October 28th, we have a lovely Mars trine Jupiter in your 12th house, which offers a solution. Probably a time where you will feel like you want to isolate yourself a bit more from the world. I mean, a lot of these transits are highlighting more hidden houses. Like the fourth house is a hidden house, the eighth house is a more hidden house, the 12th house is also more hidden house. So you might really be in a sort of like secluded mode during this transit and during the whole of October. But it offers a lot of support as well. Maybe this time around is actually where you experience some clarity and unity also from your family, or who truly supports you and creates a foundation for you that lasts long. It certainly is a time where crisis moment might arise, and that is further emphasized when we look at October 29th, when Mars is trining Saturn, and then later on November 4th, when Mars is trining Neptune, both in your eighth house, that have to do with shared resources, with contracts, but also with intimacy. So this might be a very fruitful time for you to develop intimacy and structure when it comes to around healing and what support you are needing. So, dear Leos, there's a lot that is going. I feel like you're getting this transits on a more rougher note, definitely, certainly in houses that are not the most easiest houses. Yet, I do want to emphasize that crises lends itself to opportunity and can lend itself to true transformational healing, especially again when it comes to family matters, when it comes to ancestry, when it comes to self-sabotaging patterns, that's very like 12th house, and when it comes to injustices or maybe things where you have felt powerless. And this is kind of what this transit is really highlighting for you. So this is what I have for you, dear Leos, and let me know how you have been doing, and I'm sending you much love. Okay, dear Virgos, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Mars in Scorpio is going to be traveling through your third house. That has a lot to do with communication, with our thinking, with our siblings, with our local environment. The third house is our fish tank environment. So everything that is nearby, our enclosure. It's not our home, it's everything that is just nearby our home and our vicinity, so to say. So with Mars there, you might get a real urge to strive for how you want to improve and how you want to transform that part of your life. Sometimes there might also be, the third house and having to do with siblings. It might be that your sibling is exhibiting these traits and they might suddenly come into your life and play a bigger role if you have any siblings, of course. Not all Virgos are going to have siblings. In that case, it can also have to do with your neighbors, but again, it can also simply have to do with your nearby environment or maybe your daily commutes. This is oftentimes third house transits is people changing the way they commute to work. Maybe you realized, oh, there is a way that I can take that is actually much more nourishing to me and my emotional body. So you start walking there instead of going the way that you have always went. Or you're like, oh, actually, after work, I drive by with my car next to a waterfall. So let me replenish myself there instead of immediately heading back home. Um, Martin Scorpio has a lot to do with like replenishing ourselves and our emotional body. So on September 24th, Mars is going to square Pluto in your sixth house. This has to do with your work and your health and is going to highlight how your stress levels have been impacting your speech and your mindset, or maybe your relationship towards your siblings, or again, how you are commuting to your work. Since again, especially the sixth house is highlighted then. So there might be some tension where you realize, actually, this is not healthy. Like, this is making me sick. My stress levels are really impacting me, or the way that I think about certain, like, I'm just overthinking and overthinking. So this day might really bring things to a head and force you to realize, actually, I need to invest a lot more time into clearing my energetic body. Maybe I need to do a bit more saging, salt baths. Salt baths are great for Scorpio season and just Mars in its domicile, going through Scorpio. The healing power of water, okay? Don't underestimate that. And then on October 7th, we have an Aries full moon happening in your eighth house. This is the house of shared resources, other people's finances, also intimacy. So this is kind of being pushed into the spotlights. And since it's ruled by Mars that is in your third house, I would actually suggest this full moon has probably a lot to do with, like, don't underestimate how much impact your words and the way that you think about things actually have in your life. Because ever since Saturn and Neptune moved into your eighth house this year, there has been a big like highlight in this eighth house of yours around maybe some wounds about intimacy where you have felt powerless, maybe some trauma rising up to the surface, some anxiety, crises moments. So this full moon might actually bring a crisis moment in and of itself, or it might be a bring a big realization or aha moment of where you have contributed to you feeling powerless. Because it is true, sometimes we definitely have to step away and realize we're not the sole responsible people in this, and it's okay to not blame everything on myself. And gosh, I know, dear Virgos, you sometimes do that. But sometimes we also do have to take back our power and realize that where can I do things? And a lot of it comes to the way we think about things in our head and our position. A lot of things are a matter of perspective. And this full moon might really like bring that spotlight to that. Then on October 28th, we have a lovely Mars trine Jupiter in your 11th house. And this is kind of really going to expand your friends and your networks and your ideas. It's such a good and lovely time to be with the right people because they're going to propel you further than you could ever go on your own. And sharing your visions, you got to be with people that are not closed-minded right now, dear Virgos, okay? You got to be with people that can actually connect you to the people that believe in you. And then you will experience the healing quality of knowing the right groups and what they can do. Then on October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn, and on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in your seventh house of partnerships, a close one-on-one relationships that are more intimate. So this is probably a time where things could stabilize a bit more if you are in a partnerships. And you could gain a lot more clarity with compassion and figure out things that what base do you want to have that lasts long term? It's really a good time to like sit down with somebody you trust. Maybe even if you don't have a partner, just one-on-one close relationships is just can also be a friendship, can also be a therapist if you feel really safe working with your therapist. But a good time to like clear out some of that emotional like baggage that we carry around ourselves in our heads and like the harsh words we are constantly going over and over on in our thoughts and our minds. It might be a really good and healing time to clear that. If you are somebody that is prone to negatively think about relationships, all of that, this might actually really really be a good day to like transform that and like let go of something, let go of a negative thought, belief, and pattern that has been holding you back for a while. So, this is what I have for you, dear Virgos. Let me know how you are feeling. I'm sending you much love. Libra risings, hello, hello, and welcome to your Mars and Scorpio horoscope. So, Mars in Scorpio is going to be traveling through your second house. The second house has a lot to do with money, with possessions, with self-worth, with our values, kind of everything we accumulate on our own. With Mars and Scorpio, it doesn't just have to be materialistic things, because sometimes our own resources can also simply be our ability to go through crises moments, to go through transformational moments, to experience emotional alchemy. Okay, water signs are from the emotional realm, so your own resources might be on that type of level. And once you clear them, they can obviously express themselves in the physical world as well, in the form of actually having more financial abundance or being able to acquire more materially. So, this will be really a highlight for you this Mars and Scorpio transit. On September 24th, we have Mars squaring Pluto in your fifth house. Fifth house having to do with creativity and romance. And it might kind of make you realize, because, okay, this is a tension moment, right? So this might go head to head. Maybe you realize that where you have been focusing more on other people, on romance, on dating, and neglecting your financial abilities, maybe you've been like pushing your financial challenges under the rug and focusing on, oh, I'm just gonna let other people pay for me and do these things and all of that. Like, no, we gotta we gotta focus on where we can bring back our own power. Because you have so much like that Mars, sorry, that's, well, it is also Mars, but that Mars ruled second house of yours in Scorpio that you have natally, regardless if you have any planets there or not, is very powerful. And you have to realize often, dear Libras, that there is actually so much that you can do yourself. You don't even have to rely on other people to do that. And this is going to get highlighted even more on October 7th, once we have that full moon in the sign of Aries, ruled by that Mars in your second house. That full moon is going to be in Aries in your seventh house. So partnerships, close one-on-one relationships are really taking the spotlight. And they're really questioning, how much self-worth do you actually have? And like your self-worth is, ugh, cannot pronounce that. Your self-worth is going to be reflected through others. They're going to hold up a mirror to you, and you're going to have to painfully realize, or maybe it's going to be totally fine, there's nothing to hide if there's nothing to hide. But you're going to definitely be held up the mirror during this time, during this full moon, and you're going to see how much power are you giving away to other people, and where do you need to take power back to yourself? Because you can. There's so much that you can do, dear Libras, okay? Don't play small. Don't play small during this Mars in Scorpio transit. On October 28th, we have a lovely Mars trine Jupiter in your 10th house, which is gonna focus on your career growth and also support your finances in that way. This might be a time where you're getting into a promotion, where you're put up in a higher position, or maybe you realize, I want to step back. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. You're like, I'm going to do something that's going to liberate me financially a lot more, and I'm going to put in the work that needs to be put in to expand my business expenditures. It also kind of puts a highlight on what you want to leave behind, what legacy you want to leave behind. How do I want people to remember me? And then on October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn. And on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in the sign of Pisces in your sixth house, which has to do with health and your routines. So there's going to be the question, do they align? And maybe this is the time where you realize, where do I need to step up and be more rigorous in how I upkeep my routines and my health? Because this is ultimately, going back to that second house, gonna be beneficial for my for my finances in general and my career and just the resources that I can have. So first, invest into yourself, fill your own cup first, and then things will flow so much more easily. Promise. So this is what I have for you, dear Libras. Let me know how you are doing, and I'm sending you much love. So, dear Scorpios, suns and risings, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Now, in a way, you are definitely highlighted this month because Mars is transiting your first house, which has all to do with your body, with your drive, with your identity. I wouldn't be surprised if Scorpio risings have almost had a sort of rebirth moment with just Mars entering Scorpio in and of itself, because you are ruled by Mars, okay? This is your ascendant ruler. So, whatever Mars is doing is super important. And let's not forget, the last time the Mars was in its other domicile in Aries was 17 months ago. So, Mars entering a powerful position right now in your first house, that is a rebirth moment in and of itself, dear Scorpios. And I'm so curious if you have been feeling that. As a Scorpio rising myself, I've definitely felt that. On September 24th, Mars is gonna square Pluto in your fourth house of home, of family, and there might be a tension around like power dynamics and a sort of stress test in maybe how much independence do I want? If you are closely tied to your family, maybe you want to break out, maybe you want to move away. Or just generally family ties and living situation that kind of get put under stress. Maybe you're living alone and you hear some news about having to change your flat, things like that. All of this can kind of happen around that time. Also, cautionary tale about just being taking the necessary precautions to feel safe in your home. If on that day you are working with any sharp objects in your home, just be a bit more careful than you are usually, because things might turn sour more easily during that day. And you might be surprised that, there are accidents that can happen at home. Actually, a lot of times accidents do happen at home. So, on October 7th, there's going to be an Aries full moon in your sixth house that is ruled by that Mars in your first, which is going to lay a focus on your daily work and on your health. It's going to be a culmination point around these topics. And you're probably going to, if you have been stressing out way too much, this is going to show up, okay? Because it's going to be a time where you really have to take care of your health, okay, and your stress levels and the way that you're balancing your energetic body. Better be better just take a little bit more time for yourself and invest more time into really calming that energetic system, your nervous system, because otherwise it would be an easy time to get sick and like unnecessarily sick. So keep that in mind for the full moon. Um, then on October 28th, Mars forms a lovely trine to Jupiter in your ninth house, which puts a focus on growth through travel, through study, or through belief systems. And kind of like really realize, where do I want to go and how do my beliefs really shape my worldviews? You might be really inspired during that times to book that flight to that country you've always wanted to visit. Or it's a lovely time if you're currently studying, if you are in education, to gain that certificate or get that approval to that university. Maybe it's even in a university abroad, and you might get really lucky when it comes to your application process and getting accepted. Yes. Or again, just traveling abroad. This is actually a good time to be traveling because you might get really like lucky wherever you go. You might have a really good place. Bounce it off with your Jupiter line, and this might actually be even more beneficial. I'm talking about astrocartography here. On October 29th, Mars forms a trine to Saturn, and on November 4th, Mars also forms a trine to Neptune in the sign of Pisces, which lays a focus to your creativity, to children, if you have any. If you don't have any children, it might be a focus on your own inner child, and also romance and like find structure and inspiration through basically yourself and realizing I am the vessel that creates my life. There's a lot of potential for some deep inner child healing this month and really healing your ancestral line. Okay, this action in your fourth and fifth house with like Pluto, Neptune, and Saturn there is really laying a big focus on clearing the foundations and laying a new groundwork and foundation that brings long-term joy and creative freedom and expression into your life. So, this is what I have for you, dear Scorpios. Let me know how you're doing, and I'm sending you much love. Okay, Sagittariuses, dear Sagittariuses, welcome to your. T- that is so wrong. Dear Sagittariuses, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscopes. Now, Mars in Scorpio is going to be traveling through your 12th house, which will going to bring up themes around solitude, around your subconscious mind, around your hidden actions. The 12th house is an aversion to the first house, so that's why it brings up all the things that are kind of unseen or that we just like can't naturally fully see clearly. This is what 12th house transits are good for. A lot of times in our 12th house season, which for you, dear Sag, is Scorpio season, we have a natural incline to just isolate ourselves a bit more or live more in solitude, perhaps also meditate more. It might also be a time where we're really focusing on our mental health and reassessing all the things that lead to some self-sabotaging beliefs and patterns into our life. That's why it's also called the house of self-undoing. Basically, the unpleasant thing about a 12th house is that it forces us to look at our self-sabotaging behaviors. But the good thing about the 12th house is that it forces us to face our subconscious patterns that are unhealthy. So it's almost like a bit of a double-edged sword. It's a painful transit, but at the end, it can be super beneficial because it actually lets us see what is going on and holding us back into our lives. And so these are going to be the themes in general for you, dear Sag risings. Sag suns and risings. On September 24th, we have Mars squaring Pluto in your third house. This is going to bring up conflict in your communication or with your siblings. Okay, be careful during that day. If you have any siblings, of course, you might not have any siblings. It could also be your neighbors or your neighborhood. Things might get like into a heated argument or something like that during that day. And even just for you, be careful how you're communicating that day because this is influenced by a Mars in your 12th house. Let's not forget. So that might be that day where you actually have that aha moment where you're like, oh, yeah, the way that I sent this message clearly was from a place where my trauma was talking. And gosh, I've self-sabotaged this again. So this might really be a clash. But again, also clarity with all of that, with how this is influencing your life. So there is always a transformative moment that can happen. On October 7th, we have the Aries full moon that is happening in your fifth house, that is bringing up creativity, romance, kind of to a spotlight. And you're going to realize, again, because this full moon is ruled by that Mars in your 12th house, what are your hidden, like, what are kind of the hidden desires that you are not being honest about with yourself that you want to go and get? And it's going to force you to get really honest with yourself about that. Like, be honest about the people you want to date. Be honest about how much time you want to invest in your creativity. Be honest in what hobbies you want to take, even if you're the weird and the all one out for being the only person that wants to do this. It's about the joy of life. And maybe there are some weird things that bring joy into your life, but embrace them because it's gonna be so much better. On October 28th, Mars forms a lovely trine to Jupiter in your eighth house that has to do with shared resources, other people's resources, entanglements we have with them, contracts, and also intimacy. Everything is going to kind of expand behind the scenes, okay? You have some pretty dark hidden houses highlighted this month. Mars is traveling to your 12th is a hidden house. 8th house is also a bit more of a hidden house. Both of them are in inversion. 4th house is an angular house, but it is the most like private space, therefore also quite hidden house. So there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. And when Mars and Jupiter form a trine from the 12th and the 8th house, there's definitely going to be something. Maybe there are some secrets that are revealed, maybe painful in the beginning, but ultimately this will lead you to be able to heal from any sort of power imbalances much better. And you'll be happy that things got revealed sooner than later, because you would have had to go through this anyways, okay? What I'm saying there, Sag, is there are probably crisis moments that are gonna arrive this moment for you, but these trines are so good to actually equip you to pull through to them and come out so much stronger. On October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn, and on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in your fourth house. And you might realize just how supportive your home and family life actually is, and how they are really like the base, like they're serving the base of safety and maybe even healing. Of course, not everybody has the luxury of having a family that is supportive, but family, again, I mean, there's a whole video we could make about that. We have our blood family, but we also have the family that we choose. It's just definitely going to highlight the meaning of family to you and what does it mean to be supported and held from a family perspective. Do you have the people that are going to pick you up from the airport when you come? They're going to pick you up and be there when you're at the hospital, when you're having a crisis moment. There is stability that you're searching, and your immutable sign, dear Sagittarius, you're notoriously well at not being able to create so much stability for you. And you know that fourth house in Pisces is also mutable. It's not really known for creating a lot of stability, but that's what Saturn has been doing in Pisces for a long time now. And this is the last stretch, okay? This is the last stretch of Neptune and Saturn, both into Pisces. So it's really about what foundational work do I want to lay and create that is going to benefit me on a long term and make me feel safe in my body and the people that I have around me. So this is what I have, dear Sagittariuses. Let me know how you're feeling. And I'm sending you much love. Dear Capricorn, suns and risings, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Mars in Scorpio is going to be traveling through your 11th house, which is going to put themes of friend groups, networks, goals, and visions that we have to the forefront and what you're willing to do to get them. Now, I know that you, dear Capricorns, are ruled by Saturn, but Mars is also very good. Basically, Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So if there's any planet that would be your co-ruler, it would 100% be Mars because Mars does extremely well in your own sign. And you just wait, you're going to have that Mars in the 12th in Sagittarius, but then in December, when it's your season, Mars is gonna move into Capricorn in your first house, and that's gonna be such a homecoming, okay? But now we first gotta focus on which people do we want to have around us. On September 24th, Mars is gonna square Pluto in your second house. So this is gonna bring up a theme around like self-worth, about finances, to your group dynamics. There might be even bring tension. Maybe you are part of an organization And you realized I'm putting in so much effort, the others aren't, or I'm investing a lot of my finances, others aren't. This can kind of bring things to a head. Let's not forget that squares are ruled by Mars, are of the nature by Mars. So while there is a potential for conflict, and I also urge you, there's a cautionary warning, don't cut off people too quickly. Things might transform in a good manner. Okay, especially later on down in the month. We have a Aries full moon in your fourth house that is ruled by Mars in Scorpio in your 11th house, which is gonna culminate things around your home and around your family and like the foundational matters in your life. So what do you really want to create? What do you really want to invest in? What do you need to feel safe and to feel okay? Do you feel good in your living situation or not? Do you feel like you want to move away? This will also bring things a bit to a head. And then we have some more pleasant transits after that. On October 28th, we have a lovely Mars trine Jupiter in your seventh house of close one-on-one relationships. And this might be the time where you realize just how supportive your partner is, or your friendship is, or maybe your therapist is, all your intimate relationships, you might realize just how good you have it, or like what a supportive partner you're having, and also kind of force you to receive from other people, to receive the good from other people. I know you're the Capricorns, you tend to come up with everything on your own, but Jupiter in your seventh house has kind of been forcing you to basically be more receptive to receiving abundance and what other people want to give you on an emotional level. Just like you gotta open that door a bit more, okay? On October 29th, we have Mars trining Saturn, and on November 4th, we have Mars trining Neptune in your third house of communication, of writing, and of learning, of your siblings, and of your kind of nearby environment. So you're gonna basically really be rethinking, thinking keyword here, like just how can I lay this foundation of, let me actually put it this way, because this is kind of happening in a trine, okay? The 11th, the 7th, and the third houses are really highlighted here. And for me, this is really the social trine because it has everything to do with the people you have around yourself, the close people you have around you, and, third house also has to do with siblings, but your community. So all of that is going to be highlighted, and there's going to be some real progress in really feeling the benefits of it takes a village to raise a child. It's just you have to let it happen. Okay, dear Capricorns, you have to also let it happen and be okay with accepting nourishment and asking for help. Okay, this is a good month for actually admitting and asking for help if you need it. And you might be more lucky than you could presume in how much help is actually offered to you once you take that step. So, this is what I have for you, dear Capricorns. I'm sending you much Aquarius suns, Aquarius risings. Welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Mars will be traveling through your 10th house of career, of reputation, of your public life, how you're viewed, but also what legacy you kind of want to leave behind. So, this is going to be highlighted this month for you, and you're probably really going to be thinking about these themes. Then on September 24th, Mars is going to be squaring Pluto in your first house, which will bring up conflicts around yourself and your career. And probably like, what do I want to be known for and how do I perceive myself? Or how does the public perceive me? And how am I actually as a person when I am by my own? It might also be bring some tension around what needs to be sacrificed for the work that you want to do because Mars is gonna put you on the lane of getting what you desire when it comes to your public life and the work that you want to do, your career that you want to get. At the same time, this might conflate with you taking care of yourself. And your Aquarius risings, okay, you're sometimes notoriously known for forgetting that you are human and that you have basic human needs that you have to take care of every day. And so this might be the time where you realize like, okay, I want to go after my career, but I do also need to take care of myself because if I'm not doing well, well, there's not going to be much of the career that I want to do, right? So, and then on October 7th, we're gonna have an Aries full moon in your third house. That has to do with your siblings, your nearby environment, the way you're thinking, the way you're communicating. So there's going to be a spotlight in relation to your career with that. Basically, how you are expressing yourself and if that is conducive or not conducive to your career and what you want to leave in the world. It might be a time where people are really like focused on what are you saying? The weight that your words are carrying might really impact people. It's also, the third house kind of has also to do with social media just because it pushes a lot of that like third house themes around like thinking and socializing. So do also be careful, because worst case, some people might interpret or completely misinterpret your message. On the other hand, it might also really highlight you in a good way and lead to more exposure. Then on October 28th, we have Mars forming a lovely trine to Jupiter in your sixth house of work and health. So you might really be finding what type of routines are really supportive of your health that will in turn then benefit your career. Remember what I said before, that you are notoriously known for sometimes forgetting that you are a human and you have basic human needs that you need to take care of. Well, this is a time where you remember that. You remember that you're human and you need to take care of yourself and your health because if you don't, well, nothing's going to come of the career. Nothing's going to come of the legacy because if you're not healthy, it's so hard to actually invest your time and energy to build something up. So we got to be careful in what we are doing. On October 29th, we have Mars forming a trine to Saturn, your ruler, and also later on November 4th, we have Saturn forming a trine to Neptune, both of them in Pisces in your second house. And this is going to highlight your finances, your own resources, what you're accumulating and gaining through life, and also your values. They're kind of going to be basically, we're going to question how does this play into my public role? And there's going to be a big emphasis on like being compassionate. If around that time you are thinking of doing charity, this is actually a perfect time to do that because it's going to positively influence your career and how people view you. I'm not for, people doing charity simply to get something out of it. There's like a word for that, but I can't think of the exact word for that right now. Basically like people doing these things just to gain like publicity in like a positive manner. I don't, first of all, if you're watching this channel, I would highly doubt you even are such a person, but I'm just like gonna put it out there. If you're already doing charity, it's just a wonderful time to like put it into the limelight and tell people like, hey, this is what I'm supporting. These are the causes that I'm supporting. Um, yeah. Or maybe you are building such a thing. Maybe you are building an organization, a nonprofit or something. Maybe that is your career. And this could also be a good time to bring this into the limelight and really also in return positively benefit your financial situations because people constantly miss that, right? There's just not a lot of things that you can do with money. You can do all the good things in the world, but you're gonna have the financial resources and funds to be able to move things. And so maybe and hopefully, this is going to be a transit that will really make you figure out how you can put all of that under one hat. You are very humanitarian. Aquarius is, you want to help humans, you want to help humanity. So you got to be able to package all of that in a way that is actually going to lead to people wanting to help you. And that is going to be by again, taking care of your health, taking care of your own self. So filling your own cup first. And then also being very wise about marketing. Can we say that? Like how you voice yourself, your opinions, your words. And then in turn, how the public views you. Like don't underestimate how much power, especially this month, people viewing you in a good way can and will have on your career and your life. So this is what I have for you, dear Aquariuses. Let me know how you're doing, and I'm sending you much love. Okay, dear Pisces, suns and risings, welcome to your Mars in Scorpio horoscope. Now, Mars in Scorpio is going to be traversing your ninth house that have to do with your beliefs, with higher education, education in general, and education doesn't have to mean university with the ninth house. It certainly can be, but it often also is the university of life, which is just exploring your own self in this weird little life we have on this earth. And also having to do with travel, far distance travel in the ninth house. So these are going to be themes that are kind of going to be highlighted for you in general. Then on September 24th, we have Mars squaring Pluto in your 12th house. This has a lot to do with your subconscious beliefs. And there might be things that are resurfacing at that moment. It might be a bit of a crisis moment. Like basically blocks around, like what limiting self-sabotaging beliefs are in the way of you experiencing the world and yourself and exploring yourself and the world in a more abundant way that is actually suitable for you and it makes living much more joyful. Or what is kind of holding you back? Maybe you want to maybe you want to go back to school, but you have some beliefs of like, nobody in my family ever got a degree. Why should I be the person that does this? Nobody else has moved abroad. Why should I be the person who does it? And you don't realize how much of that is simply your beliefs telling you that it is not possible. And this day can like really highlight that and bring a bit of a crisis moment when you realize, because it's always painful to realize our self-sabotaging behaviors and patterns, but then we can transform them. And Scorpio Mars is all about transforming our beliefs, especially if it's in the ninth house, which is it is in your case. Then on October 7th, we have an Aries full moon in your second house. That is bringing a highlight to your finances, to your self-worth, kind of the things you accumulate in your life. And really just seeing again how your own views, your own beliefs, ninth house, shape your ability to actually take care of yourself and your finances. And how much this is impacting on your ability in what you think you can do and how much you're getting. Okay, this full moon is important in Aries because it's ruled by that Mars. So it's in direct correlation. And you, dear Pisces, you have Mars rules your second and your ninth house in general, if you have planet there or not. So your financial situation is always going to be directly tied to your values and what you believe about yourself and your ability to gain things. And this full moon is just going to really highlight that. Maybe in some unpleasant ways, but ultimately able to transform ways that can actually surpass those limitations and beliefs, you know? We can cut them off. We can do some energetic clearing. We can do some salt baths or whatever. Yes. And sometimes, I'm thinking of Mars in that ninth house of yours. It can also just be, it can be taking a course. Maybe that's the time you're taking a course that really shapes your beliefs in new ways. That is also education. That is life education. Or maybe you realize I actually need to move to a different place in a different country that is much more aligned with the way that I do things, and it's going to be much more beneficial. Then on October 28th, we have Mars forming a trine to Jupiter in your fifth house. This is lovely. This is sexy, let me tell you, because Jupiter is your ruler. So whatever Jupiter does is going to be impactful. So that day is going to be impactful for you. and it's going to fuel your creativity, your romance. If you have any children, it's going to influence them in a positive way. It's a very nurturing day, to say the least, and definitely going to fuel your worldview and expand that on a whole different level. And you're going to see how much joy can actually come into your life if you let it, like truly let it, like truly surrender to it. Um, Not in a way that is escapist, but in a way that is fully present. On October 29th, we have Mars forming a trine to Saturn, and on November 4th, we have Mars forming a trine to Neptune in your first house. Now, dear Pisces, this is the this is the last and final stretch of Saturn and Neptune going back to your first house, right? Like this is we're just doing this now. Next year, both Saturn and Neptune are out of your first house. Okay, bye-bye. And you can rest for a longer while. This is just a final stretch and the final lessons. And so, your identity is receiving both Saturn's structures and Neptune's vision. So, all of this is about embodying your beliefs fully and not being ashamed about what you truly want in life. Okay, dear Pisces, there is a reason why fish sometimes are basically fish lost in the ocean. And that is sometimes what you can be. You can be a fish being lost in the ocean and wandering around, not fully knowing what to do and being influenced by everything and everyone around you, except going back to yourself and your inner world and realizing what is it that I truly want. Not what other people want, not what the desire of humanity is and what the right thing is to do that is compassionate. No, what do you truly want? That is the compassionate thing. The real compassionate thing right now is to look out for yourself. What do you truly desire? And having the audacity to actually go after it, because that is going to influence your financial situation so much more than you can imagine. And you're going to realize just how powerful you are. You're going to realize how powerful it is to prioritize joy, to prioritize pleasure. Um, Inner child play, if you have children, um, connecting with them. But if you don't have children, it can also, the fifth house can also talk about like your own inner child. And reconnecting to that is going to be so powerful for you, dear Pisces. Like this month, this whole transit of Mars and Scorpio has the potential, sorry, to be deeply transformative in ways beyond your imagination if you let it. If you let desire be your compass. So, that is what I have for you, dear Pisces. I'm sending you much love. Let me know how you're doing. Bye for now. Okay, everybody, thanks for sticking around until the end. I just have this last final slide up, which is how we can stay connected. I post a lot on Instagram, so following me there is totally worth it because oftentimes I basically, everything I say on YouTube, I condense it there. And there are also some extra posts that I have there which never make it on YouTube. So follow me on Instagram. I am sometimes also more or less active on Reddit under Haruka. Sometimes I'm active on Astro Reddit there. My website is resonanceastrology.com. My email is resonance.astrology@gmail.com. If you're interested for readings, for exploring that in a more in-depth manner. Maybe you have your birthday coming up soon, you want to explore your solar return chart, anything like that. I'm also making new offers. I want to offer specific eighth house readings, so stay tuned for that. And just if you're interested in anything like that, the best is to write me direct mail because my calendar on the website is not working. But you can always write me a mail and I will respond. And of course, YouTube and Spotify. I'm under Resonance Astrology. You're watching this on YouTube, so you already know. I would be super happy if you would subscribe to the channel if you like this, because this is more of the content that I'm gonna be posting. And it does more than liking and subscribing does more than. And what else is there to say? Yes. So just some other promotional things again besides Instagram. Me and my friend Juna, we are doing workshops on the decans of astrology, which are the 30 degrees, or well, 10 degrees in the 30 degrees increments of one zodiac sign that basically splits the zodiac sign into three parts. And we are going to record the decans of Libra very soon, and that's going to be up on our channel. And after that, we also always have a workshop part where we are sitting down and dissecting it a bit further. And all of that information is going to be in the video of that. Um, so if you have any Libra placements, it's going to be extra interesting. And yeah, this is basically what is the most important thing for right now. So I'm going to leave you at that. We're going to stop sharing here. And now we're back on screen. I'm back on screen. So again, thank you so much for watching. And if you stuck around, I'm sending you much love and I hope we're going to see each other soon.